Let's bring in John Wright, veteran pollster, joining us now live to talk about all of the latest in federal politics. I mean, John, clearly it's going to be a busy day for you. What are the latest data, I guess, or numbers that you're looking at showing?
Well, what we've got is the Conservatives and the Liberals almost in a dead heat. Almost every poll has shown over the last month or so the Liberals rise in the polls as Mr. Carney comes onto the stage. He's being pretty much the only candidate talked about, and as Mr. Trudeau leaves, we have to remember that it wasn't too long ago when the Liberals had gone from being about 34% in the polls. You need only 37 to have a majority, but they were in a minority position, down to 19%. And so we've seen that bounce up over the last month or so as we've just come off of this convention.
Mm-hmm. And we know everything will be made official later on this morning, but what we're hearing from sources, it looks like Carney's cabinet is going to be a little bit smaller. What do you think the strategy is behind that?
Well, it's going to confirm probably three things. Number one is that it's going to eschew the Trudeau era. I mean, we have to remember that now, almost dead even at 37% between the Conservatives and the Liberals, that the Conservatives themselves have targeted Justin Trudeau for the last 2 years and made him the enemy. Without Trudeau there, it makes it tougher to do so, and so Mr. Carney will remove all kinds of vestiges associated with Mr. Trudeau, including policies like carbon tax, even if it's a variation. The second thing is that we're going to look at the personalities and the size of the cabinet. Where are they from? Who are they? Who's the fresh face? Because these cabinet ministers will be in for a short period of time, because we've got an election on the horizon, but they will send a signal as to, who they are, where they're from, what it's about, and there may be some surprises at the last minute. Mm-hmm. The third thing is the ballot question, and what that means is that we go to the polls, we mark our ballot with a particular X, and behind it is an issue. And right now we all know it's about tariffs. And so the question will be, who does he keep in place to deal with that while the election is on? How do they continue to deal with Donald Trump? And the reality is it's going to be one of the most precarious and unpredictable campaigns, because you and I know, and all of our viewers, that right up until Election Day, it'll be somebody south of the border who wakes up in the morning and says something that may direct how we all feel and how we vote. So the three things that we'll be looking for this morning at the swearing in is what the new face is without the Trudeau government, who the people are that are going into it and where they're from, and thirdly, what are the early signals in how Mr. Carney is going to deal with the trade issue and what his speech will be or what his remarks will be following that.
I'm curious, John, what do you think, or what are you seeing already potentially? Mark Carney's Liberal leadership win and soon to be the beginning of his term as Prime Minister is doing for the NDP, because Jagmeet Singh and the NDP support for them has been collapsing as of late.
Yeah, absolutely. And what it's caused is a ballot question in the country between the two main parties. We have to remember the Conservatives are very, very strong. So even though they may be even in the polls at the moment, the Liberals are fairly hollow, right? People are still getting to know who Mark Carney is. They've got a war chest. They've been able to make sure that the Conservatives have the Liberals painted. What that's done, though, is collapse the NDP down from about 17%. In some polls, they're sitting at about 10% in the polls. So it's creating a two-party ballot. We'll see how Jagmeet Singh does. I mean, the NDP do well in certain areas of the country, but they're certainly not riding the popular wave because they're not part of the conversation. The conversation right now has been between the Conservatives and the Liberals, and specifically on the trade issue, and the NDP really aren't there for us to consider.
And when it comes to the feeling from the public on the new Liberal leader and soon-to-be Prime Minister for this country, Mark Carney, you mentioned, people don't really know him that well. We're still kind of getting a sense of who he is. What are you seeing when it comes to the polling and what people want to know about him?
Well, they're looking for somebody who, in fact, can not only deal with Donald Trump, but they're looking for somebody who, in fact, is, in a way, the anti-Trudeau. So you're looking for somebody who's more business-oriented, who's got a different demeanor, who in fact will scale back the size of cabinets. We have to remember that if it's 20 members today, it'll be a far cry from the 37 or the 40 that, the government has had. They're looking for somebody who in fact has got a calmer demeanor. There are many things that the Conservative leader has, and as I said at the outset, you only need 37% in order to get a majority government, and they've hovered around the 40 to 42% mark. There are attributes that Pierre Poilievre has that people want. Mm-hmm. But introducing Mark Carney is going to be an interesting challenge because the Conservatives are going to do everything they can to characterize him in a way that's going to be to their advantage. So over the next week, as we all get to know Mark Carney a little bit better, with his attributes, the Conservatives will be ramping up their social media advertising, and they'll be characterizing him in a way which will help them win the election. So there's a lot of focus going to be on Mark Carney, both good, both bad, but it's a danger time for any party to put a new leader in the window when, in fact, you're headed into an election campaign that's going to determine such an outcome, which in many ways is not just about a government, but also about the future of the Liberal Party, which itself is remade right now.
And a question, I mean, Canadians wanted a change at 24 Sussex Drive. They're getting it today with Mark Carney, no matter what, and then we'll see what happens when and if this election is called. John Wright, veteran pollster, thanks so much for your time this morning.